Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Audit and Standards Committee. Please, first of all, can I request that mobile telephones and other such devices are switched to silent so as not to disturb the conduct of the meeting. This meeting is a public meeting and has been live streamed for the public to view. Can I ask that when you wish to speak, you raise your hand and only speak when indicated. Please ensure that microphone is switched on, and when you finish speaking, please ensure it is switched off again. One of the independent members, Karen Widdowson, is joined us online. And if Karen, if you wish to speak, and I'll try and keep an eye on the screen, could you raise the hand function? There's no fire test planned for today, and if there is an emergency evacuation, please take instructions from the town hall staff. The assembly point is actually in Tudor Square. For the benefit of those watching on the webcast, can I do a quick round of introductions to everyone in the room? I am Councillor Colin Ross and I'm chair of today's meeting. If I go around this way to my left.
I'm David Hollis, Interim Director of Legal and Governance.
Chair Bell, Democratic Services Officer.
Alison Howard, Independent Co-opted Member.
Hi, I'm Councillor Tom Hunt. I'm Councillor for Walkley Ward.
Hi everyone, I'm Councillor Kevin Oxley, Councillor for Mossbury.
Hi, I'm Simon Clement Jones, Councillor for Beechworth and Greenhill.
Hello, Linda Hunter, Senior Finance Manager, Internal Audit and Risk Management.
Hello, I'm Sarah Green, Senior Information Management Officer and DPO.
Hi, Councillor Argentio, Councillor for Broomhill and Sharvale Ward.
Tony Kirkham, Interim Director of Finance.
Okay, thank you very much. Karen, do you want to just test that we can hear you?
I'm Karen Henderson, one of the independent members. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. That's coming through. Okay. Item 2 on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Chair, I've received apologies from Councillors Ben Curran and Gary Weatherall.
Okay, thank you. Exclusion of the press and public is item 3 on the agenda. Item 10, which is the strategic risk reporting, is excluded from the public and as the report contains exempt information under paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. At this time, when we will pause the webcast, and any public or press in physical attendance here will be asked to leave the meeting room. Okay, item 4 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Do any members need to declare an interest in any item on the agenda? Okay, I'll take silence for that. Item 5 is minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any matters of accuracy that need to be addressed in the minutes, or matters arising? And again, I will take silence so that we can accept those as a true record and they are accurate. Okay, thank you very much. So that's moved us swiftly on to item 6 on the agenda, which is Linda, you're going to introduce the progress in high options reports. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this report is to track the recommendations that are outstanding, and therefore either our audit reports that have got an opinion of no assurance or limited assurance with high impact to the organisation. This report comes to yourselves every 6 months. So the last report came to you in June 2022. Since then, we've got 4 new reports that have been added to this, the tracker, and they are Montgomery Residential Home, Heritage Park Community School, Holgate Meadows Community School, and then the FOI, Freedom of Information and Subject Access Requests. The details will be in the next report because the implementation dates for those recommendations haven't passed yet, so they'll be updated next time. So the key points, I'll just run you through some, some key points for this report. There's 30 recommendations we're tracking. Positive progress has been made against some of those recommendations, so now 17 have been implemented, so that's 57%. There's 13 outstanding, but all of those have got ongoing work. So there's some progress, but not fully implemented, so that's why they're still classed as outstanding. There's no critical recommendations now, so they've all been actions. There's no critical ones. And we've just got now down to 3 red-rated recommendations. And one of those, I'll just explain to you on page 30 in your pack, and that's to do with the children's direct payments. Since this report has been produced, I've had an update from the lead in that area, and that now has been finalised. That related to performance indicators and the use of liquid logic with forms. So that's all been actioned now. So that one's progressed. So in effect, we've only got 2 red-rated recommendations outstanding at the moment. And I take all of this report to the Performance and Delivery Board. So that went in November 2022. And they noted the progress against the recommendations. And also in the past, they've had all of those 3 red-rated recommendations. They've had the lead in that area come to that board and explain the progress, what are the delays, do they need additional resources? So that's gone to that Performance and Delivery Board. And then on page 18 in your pack, I've actually explained there the response from that delivery board meeting. So they said they are committed to take ownership of the management and control of recommendations, and they will actively pursue, especially the red-rated recommendations, to make sure they're implemented on a timely basis. And also, we've had previously where the leads have come to this meeting to explain any progress. So, and they, again, the Performance and Delivery Board said they'll encourage that, so that's going to continue. And then finally on page 20, that explains it. The 30 recommendations are related to 6 audit reports. And page 20 is a table there explaining to you the recommendations and which ones are related to. So what I'm asking the audit committee is to note the content of the report. And then if you've got any questions about any of the recommendations that are outstanding, I can take any questions.
Anybody got any indication? No? Well, that's quite good. I think possibly because there's 2 very historical ones, the 2 still outstanding, but you've given us reassurance on that, and the fact that the 3rd red one has gone, has actually progressed, because there was a target date of the 31st of December, which is obviously hit that target date now for implementation. Tom, you've got something, yeah?
It's just a clarification, I think. On page 21, point 4 says that the Freedom of Information Subject Action request was issued to the committee on 8th of December. I had a look for this and I couldn't see that actually had been issued to us. So
I can check with that, yeah. I'll check with Jane, make sure it's gone out, yeah. And if not, I'll reissue it, yeah, or I'll issue it again, yeah.
Well, that was well spotted, because we hadn't, if it was, but yeah, resend it if necessary.
Yeah, I'll send that.
In fact, send it again anyway, because
yeah, I'll send it again anyway. Yeah.
Okay, no other comments or questions on that, so thank you very much. We noted the report and that's agreed. Okay, thank you. Right, item 7 is the Code of Corporate Governance, and David, you will be presenting this report.
That's right, thank you, Chair. The Code of Corporate Governance isn't a statutory requirement, but under the CIPFA framework for governance that was issued in 2016, it's recommended that all local authorities prepare a Code of Corporate Governance. It's a document which effectively draws together the elements that we have in place across the local authority and evidences how we're meeting the principles that are outlined in the framework document issued by CIPFA. So the code was last approved by this committee in October 2020, but since then we've moved to a committee system. So this code is been updated to reflect the changes by moving to the committee system. I've also taken the opportunity to just update in paragraph under principle E, adding in the evidence, the future Sheffield programme, which is looking at the capacity in the top level of management within the council, and also the values that the council has recently adopted in relation to how its officers should operate as further evidence against those principles. So it is minor changes that are just done to reflect the change to committee system, plus those other bits of evidence that I've put in. So I don't know whether there's any particular questions that members have over this version.
Kevin?
It's only a minor one, actually, David. I just wondered if the behaviours and actions and demonstrations of governance, if that wording was picked from the various evidence in terms of reference or standards that we've got there, or are we basically saying that those are our behaviours, and because of this is how we would evidence those particular actions?
Yes, that's right. So the behaviours and actions demonstrating the good governance are those behaviours which go towards showing the principles which are above it. And then, yes, the right-hand column is, and this is how we evidence that those behaviours and actions are actually being delivered.
Sorry, Chair. Is the wording drawn from those either policies or principles or protocols, or have we written those words because that's how we want to behave? Do you see what I mean? How we want to behave, and that's how we're evidencing it through those various different streams.
Yeah. So they're not directly drawn, although they may be in some places, but it's those are the ones that we've mapped out against those behaviours.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Karen next from the screen.
Right, thank you, Chair. I wrote this particular agenda item in quite a lot of detail, particularly in my interest, and I must have noticed it's very, very comprehensive and very clear on evidence. I have one question and one suggestion. So one is a straightforward question with the Constitution is obviously listed quite a lot as evidence. And I just wondered how often the Constitution is reviewed. Obviously, the computer system has only just come into place, so I'm thinking things around and what that might be. And then my suggestion is on page 40, where you've got the behaviours and actions and the evidence, there's the top bullet point, ensuring members and officers behave with integrity and with the people that actively and difficult investment critical at that particular bullet point. I just wondered, in the evidence, as possible suggestion that maybe add in that the low number of having a low number of complaints about councillors without anyone, number of tip the tax complaints as well. It's just a suggestion that might be added in. Obviously, it's something the officers to feel that's a good idea.
Sorry. Sorry, Karen. It was very quiet and a bit garbled. I'm not sure I got both points. Did anybody else?
I'm afraid the audio wasn't great. We heard you quite clearly at the beginning, but could you repeat your specific questions and see if we can get that again?
Okay, so the one question is the annual, the Constitution is listed as evidence. Is there an annual review of the Constitution, or how often is the Constitution reviewed? That was one question. Can you hear that okay?
Yeah, we got that one loud and clear, thank you. Do you want to do your second one as well? David can answer them both together.
And then on page 40, this is about behaviours and actions. The first bullet point is about ensuring members and officers behave with integrity. That particular one, I wondered if the evidence add in about having a low number of member complaints and counter complaints. Obviously, the definition of low number of complaints is tricky to quantify, but it was just a suggestion that maybe that could be a piece of evidence as well. Hope you did know that okay.
Yes, so on the first one, the Constitution is effectively reviewed constantly. We are always taking minor amendments if we think that it needs updating. It's had a thorough review when we move to a committee system, and we do then have an annual look at it as well as doing the ongoing updates. And actually at the moment we've got a 6-month review of the committee system going through, which will also be a review of any changes that are needed to the Constitution as a result of that review. On the second point, sorry, were you adding, did you say it was about complaints and adding in the...
Yeah, on page 40, I've looked down the evidence list for, and I'm suggesting that maybe it might be a good idea to show as evidence the low number of councillor complaints would be a good piece of evidence in there.
Thank you, yes, I think we'll pick that up and subject to committee approving that, we'll put that in as further evidence.
So just to be clear, under page 40, going over to page 41, we'd add another bullet point of the evidence is number of complaints raised against members. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that.
Mine's a question. I mean, obviously it's a self-assurance document, and I'm wondering if it's scrutinised by any external agencies.
No, we don't have external scrutiny. I don't know, Linda, do external audit consider the Code of Corporate Governance?
Yeah, I think they will. I'll check that with you and I can email you around, but I think they do, so yeah, I can check.
I wondered if it could form part of the, you know, the exchange that you do with other local authorities when you get them to...
All right, yeah, like the peer reviews.
Yes, yeah. If it could possibly form part of the peer reviews to see, you know, if the level of assurance that you're giving is fairly consistent with other authorities.
Yeah, yeah. So I can look into both of those, but yeah.
Thank you. Tom, next.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for the presentation of this. A few points. First is this now scheduled in to be regularly reviewed? I can see that there was a reason to sort of hold off whilst the committee system came in, but is there now a cycle when this will be looked at? And I guess will any review pick up changes that could be made as part of the ongoing governance review? So that's one question. One point is I was quite struck looking at the evidence for all the different principles. There's no reference in here at all to anything to do with the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority. Now, obviously this is about Sheffield City Council, but increasingly a lot of the principles, and particularly Principle C, which is about defining outcomes in terms of sustainable economic, social and environmental benefits, will be done in partnership with the Mayoral Combined Authority structures. And I just wondered if that had been considered. And then the last point is kind of where next? Sort of this gets, we look at it today, we adopt it. Does it go to full council? What happens after this meeting so that it doesn't just get kind of filed away until we look at it again?
Funnily enough, we did check on that, where the procedure goes for this after the agenda came out, and David can answer that point.
So just to pick up first, I think we'll probably do a further review after the 6-month review of the Constitution. I think we've also recently had an LGA peer review, and when we get the report from that, I think we'll have a review of it then. And I think I'll programme it in for an annual review as well, just to make sure that because things will change here, particularly around the evidence, so I'll pick that up. With regard to where it goes, this is the final approval point, actually. The oversight of production of this is by this committee. It's not part of the Constitution, so it doesn't go to full council. It's a separate document that we prepare and publish. And just to pick up on your last point about the South Yorkshire Mayoral Authority, yeah, I'll probably put something in there about the behaviours and actions about the relationship and how we define that with the South Yorkshire Mayoral Authority. So again, subject to committee approving that, I'll update that.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation is that we approve this, but subject to the two caveats. The one, the extra bullet point that's going in the first one, and secondly, in Principle C, there'll be some reference to South Yorkshire Mayoral Authority. Is that agreed? Yes? Okay, agreed. Thank you. Next, it's the Information Governance Annual Report, and Sarah, you're leading on this one.
Thank you, Chair. This is a yearly Information Governance Annual Report, and it's a retrospective report, covers the financial year 21-22. There was huge disruption to council services caused by the pandemic during that time period, and that should be noted. I'm going to just give you a brief overview of the report, and starting on page 59 with the subject access requests. In 21-22, the council received 446 subject access requests, and our compliance for responding to those on time is 51.1%. The ICO was in contact with us 15 times during that financial year, and the majority of those contacts were regarding data subject complaints around the late information requests. Responding to subject access requests on time remains a priority for the council. There's currently a programme of activity to address compliance both with subject access requests and with freedom of information EIR requests, to try and reduce that backlog that was built up during the pandemic and to improve our compliance rates substantially. In 2021-22, we're still on page 59, the council received 1,691 FOI EIR requests, of which 75.9% were returned on time. So there's been some improvement now in compliance, and that trend continues. The ICO was in contact with us 17 times during that time period, and again that was mainly due to complaints around late information requests being sent back. I'm pleased to say again that compliance rates are improving. What I would say is that the upward trend for the organisation is the increase in requests, both subject access requests and freedom of information requests. I'm skipping now to information security, which you can find on page 61. We had 324 security or information security incidents logged internally within the council. 108 of those were due to personal data breaches, and 6 were reported to the ICO. I'd like to finish by just talking about our training that we have within the organisation. So our GDPR and our information security training is compulsory for all staff, and it's also compulsory that they complete that on a yearly basis. Within this time period, 21-22, 91.3% of staff completed their IG training. However, 95.42% of our social care, our adult social care staff completed it in time, which was what we needed to complete a successful submission of the DSPT, that's the Data Security and Protection Toolkit that we send back to the NHS. We continue to increase and improve our programme of bespoke training that we offer not just our staff but also to our members. We have increased that now to not just for members, not just their training that they receive when they're first elected, but continual training throughout. So, for example, I've looked at the training for last year and we've offered GDPR refresher training. We offer bespoke FOI training to support members if they receive an FOI request. We have made improvements to the intranet page and we offer updates, suitable hyperlinks to things that we think might be of interest in the members' newsletter. So, for example, phishing, things like that, cybersecurity. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Simon first.
Thank you very much for the report. Yeah, I just want to talk about the IT side of things for a bit, because you reported however many pieces of equipment lost. And obviously, you know, accidents happen, stuff happens, stuff gets stolen, so, you know, it disappears. But obviously the important thing is that everything is encrypted. Of all those things, are we first assured that you know, they were encrypted and we've not actually lost any of those data? The second thing is there's three, it's given three examples where three instances where we've reported ourselves to the ICO. The numbers add up to 5. I'm presuming that's each person. Is that an individual one? And then so really my kind of broader question really is who decides and kind of how, when we're, because we are self-reporting, when we have these things, you know, where and who do we draw the line and who draws the line, as it were? Thanks.
Sarah, go on.
Thank you, they're very interesting questions. So I think I'll start with the first question, which was the reporting of hardware loss. So that's things like your laptop or your mobile phone being stolen. I'm pretty confident we've got a really robust a kind of process within the organisation. So what happens for staff if they've unfortunately had something stolen or they've lost it, they report internally through a ticketing system that goes through to the information management team and that goes through to the IT. Everything is secure. Passwords on mobile phones are robust, so it's not, you know, 1, 2, 3 anybody can access. Things are shut down immediately upon receipt of that. And we also ask for confirmation that they've contacted the police. I'm pretty confident in saying that we've not had any identity theft or any further incidents following any thefts. Your next question was about the ICO information that's attached to this. So the report that you're looking at, C2, the summary of personal data breaches, that summary is of the ICO contacting us, not us contacting the ICO. Yeah, so it's just split like that. I think it's important that you understand when they contact us as well. Yeah, and I think there was a further question. Was it about how we report to the ICO? So we report to the ICO based on a risk assessment. So we have to understand the impact, the rights and freedoms of that individual. If we think it's going to be high, then we report to the ICO. So that's why when you look at some of these incidents, we have done within my team a risk analysis to to understand the impact of that incident. Let's say that I sent an email to the wrong Joe Blogs internally. I need to understand the impact there of that email going to the wrong Joe Blogs. So out of all of those security incidents, 324, that's why only a small minority were significant enough to contact the ICO. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And on that point, I noticed that on page 67, most of the incidents are emails or fax or whatever sent in error and things. And you said in your presentation, you know, there was staff training to try and ensure that that is reduced, because we're sometimes guilty of replying all when we shouldn't do and things. So, are there any other? Yes, Tom?
Thanks for the report and the presentation. I had just a few questions. One was about open data. In the report, it says that 12 open data sets are published by the council. Given the amount of data that the council has, that seemed quite low to me, but I don't have it in context to, you know, comparable authorities. But the report does say, so I may be wrong on that, but the report does say that this work will be reinvigorated following the reduction of pandemic backlog. So perhaps you could just give us some information about what that reinvigoration looks like. Just coming back to the ICO for a second, I'm not sure, I just want to make sure I've fully understood it. There are a number of incidents that the council would report to the ICO, and then in Appendix C2, there are a number of personal data breaches 3 that are proactively investigated by the ICO. Do you know how many of the incidents that the council reports to the ICO are then investigated? Or is it that anything that gets reported to them is investigated? And then the last one was around FOI and subject access requests, where I think we've all sort of discussed it at this committee before, the performance is not as good as it could be. I know this is 2021-22, but can you give us any insight about sort of what the trend is as we move on into 22-23? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start first with your first question. So yeah, we are positively trying to be as transparent as possible by putting things up on open data sites for our customers to have a look at. So the things that are up there at the moment are statutory requirements for us to have disclosed. What I would say is that now that we're out of the pandemic, can we do better? Yeah, of course we can do better. Let's put as much information up there for our customers as we can. And I think that is what we were trying to say in that report, that we recognise that and that there's a programme to start putting things up more openly. So, for example, our freedom of information requests. So we started to put those up as within that open data site, so that our data subjects, as we call them, could have a look at that first, see if there was a question that might be relevant to what they were going to ask. That was paused for a little bit of time, but we're looking at putting that system back in place to publish them. That's just a pause, not a complete stop. So that was, I hope a decent answer to your first one. Your second one, does the ICO investigate? Absolutely. When we put our, when we notify the ICO, or when, for example, those data subjects contact the ICO will contact us and investigate and expect a pretty robust and a pretty quick response. So, yeah. And I think you had a third question.
Did on FOIs and subject access requests, what the trends are sort of beyond this report?
Yeah, I've got it up here. Yeah, we're working really hard. We've got quite a strong programme at the moment to get us back up to excellent compliance levels and compliance levels that the ICO expects from every organisation. I've got some stats here that I pulled up very quickly, and just to give you an idea, it's in quarters, but for this previous quarter, compliance rates for FOIs was just under 79%, and for SARS was just slightly by 0.1% under 67%. So we are heading in the right direction. Lots of work to be done still, but I'm confident that our programme to clear the backlog and to get us back as BAU is going to be successful.
Okay, thank you. I mean, yes, we have had another report about tardiness of FOI requests and things, so it's something that we're conscious, and I'm glad to hear that we're moving in the right direction on this as well. Are there any other questions or comments? In that case, we are just to... Oh, sorry, Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. Sarah, I just wondered, in terms of, obviously you are tracking these FOI requests, but is it part of someone's role within your team in terms of tracking those requests and making sure that people are replying within time? I also remember seeing a report, I can't remember where it was tabled a few months ago, also about it in terms of the compensation that the council was having to pay because we weren't meeting the expectations of replying back in time. And obviously, so in terms of that, there's a monetary value that is associated with us non-compliance. So how are we better tracking those FOIs and the fact that the various officers in whatever department need to respond to them are responding within time limits?
Yeah, thank you. That's an excellent question. This comes from the top down. This is the responsibility of every officer, and the Chief Executive has made that very clear, that we as an organisation must all work together to respond to data subjects information requests. And I think that the response from every colleague that I speak to has been positive. They want to respond to them. So that's the good news there, is that people want to get on and get that information to those individuals. FOI you were talking about. So within our team, yes, I've got trackers to follow, and I've tightened up processes so that, first of all, everything goes within a ticketing system, so I'm able to report. I've got a manager's dashboard so I can track. Internally, we have a tracker so that we can see if there's a sticking point coming up, you know, we can go and help, give some resources, some support for that. We've tightened up some of the processes to allow more time for redactions. Redactions can sometimes take longer than we anticipate them taking. So I think, you know, with the kind of move to more technology and IT-based systems, these trackers, this overall understanding within the organisation that this is critical and this is important, and the move to getting things, you know, more transparent up on the website for folk to see, you know, all those things is what's improving our rate. Is it easy? No, it isn't. It's a lot of resource and a lot of manpower to keep on that target, but it's absolutely vital.
Sorry, Sarah, another question in terms of how do we compare with similar authorities?
I think we're in a similar position. If you spoke to the ICO would also tell you they're in a similar position. The pandemic has affected every organisation. Suddenly, people are taken out of their offices, are having to work from home. They don't have access to all this information. It's in an office, and they're not allowed to go in there. You know, that has really impacted organisations and the ICO. And, you know, for us, like I keep saying, it is critical to us that we get back to BAU. Not just for our data subjects, but for all of us as well, that we get there and be proud of that. So, yeah, we're working on it.
Okay, thank you. And we are asked to just to note the annual information governance update, and which we have noted it. Okay, thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda is the work programme. Firstly, I mean, the Ernst & Young were due in this meeting in January to come with their annual report, the statement of accounts and so on. Unfortunately, they were not ready, which is probably not a surprise to many of us. However, I have expressed disappointment and trying to make sure that they do come in February. And it is now scheduled on the work programme in February. We've also got on the February one, and there was some discussion about this last time, the update on the new housing management system, which is a follow-up report to one we had 6 months ago. I'd like that report actually to be a bit wider than just the housing management system, because as we had in the previous report, the fact that it wasn't working very well impacted on the whole delivery of the housing repairs and management system. So can we ensure that there's people present in the meeting that are there to answer questions that are going to arise on how is the housing repair system improving as a result of the implementation of this management system? Because I know as members, you know, it's one of our top 3 sort of complaints that we get, especially for those areas who've got a lot of council housing. We get a lot of complaints about it, and I don't want officers to be put in the position of, I can't answer that. So can we ensure that there's somebody to answer about how the housing repair system is going in general, as well as the management system? Simon, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously, where are we? Since the last meeting, I mean, I did have a little rant about this at the end of the last meeting, but I think we may have been a bit at cross purposes then. So hopefully I can kind of get things a bit more clear in my head this time. And what really helps is that we've had a debate in this chamber on housing repairs. And across the political divide, you know, there was horror story after horror story. And to be honest with you, pretty honest with you, what I want to find out is answers. I mean, I was off the council between 2015 and 2018, and before I was unceremoniously booted out, I'm not going to say the repairs service was brilliant, but it at least worked to somebody from the outside saying how should the repairs service operate. And there also seemed to be a higher level of respect in terms of the people operating inside people's houses. And that was one of the starkest things I found over recently. And it seems to be that almost the standards of behaviour of people from repairs has got worse. And, you know, that's a sign of, you know, bad morale in an organisation. It's not people who are bad and, you know, saying nasty things. It's bad morale. And, you know, the thing is, I then came back onto in 2018, and my post bag immediately full of repairs that aren't getting sorted and getting worse, and long-term repairs. And then so, you know, then I hear, okay, we've got 2.6 million extra costs this year because we've got legal fees from ambulance chasers sending around leaflets. And, you know, if that's not that's a financial risk to the council, that's what audit committee is here for to do. But not only that, you know, it's the reputational risk. If, you know, the standards of our workforce is falling because the morale is so bad, why is that? How did we get here? In 2018, you know, this started, and it's just got worse. We've had people come in talking about the IT system. We've had people come in talk about, well, it's coronavirus or austerity. Other cities have had austerity and coronavirus. This was happening before coronavirus. And, you know, I want to see, you know, let's see the comparators to Leeds, and why is it we fell so far behind? Why did our standards fall so low? You know, we've got the threat of mould now. I mean, I've had 3 this week, people who just cannot get their mould sorted out, who've been at it for, one lady today was there for a year. She's got 3 kids. You know, one of them, I had the teacher phoning me up because her daughter is writing suicide letters at the age of 7 because of their housing is so appalling. And, you know, this is what I want to find out. I want somebody in front of me where I can ask these questions. How did we get here? How have our standards in Sheffield fallen so low that this is where we are? And I just get bits and bits of the story when somebody turns up and says, oh, well, the IT system, oh, well, this, oh, well, that. You know, it's not good enough. I want some answers on this.
Simon, I think you made your point now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. I don't disagree. I don't think any of us do that housing repairs is in a bad situation. That's why the full council called for a full review last time. I think we're at risk of sort of repeating some of the arguments that we had at the end of the last meeting. When I asked for an update on the new housing management system to be put on our agenda, it was to make sure that the progress of the implementation of the new housing management system was on track, given its importance to addressing some of those housing repairs issues. That seems like that is in with the scope of this committee. The wider issues about housing repairs, as much as I want answers to some of those as well, that's for the housing committee. I think this is more limited in terms of the housing management system. So I'll let, you know, legal and colleagues advise on that. But I just think, you know, there's a housing committee which I know is looking at this. The other question I had, though, was just on the audited statement of accounts, which is moved to the February meeting from this meeting.
Right, can we just, I'll come back to you on that. We'll deal with the housing issue first.
Okay.
Then we'll come back. I think the situation is how the housing committee should be looking and will be looking at this, but I don't think it's actually, you know, we can look at it as well. It's such a serious situation. I think we can look at it as well. And I do want, I'm sort of using Chair's prerogative here, I do want somebody from housing, as well as just the information management system in housing, here in the February meeting, so they can answer some more general questions. Those of you who read the Chief Executive's message will note that last week she went out with a housing repairs service and went round with them for a day. So clearly she is taking it seriously, and I, as chair of this committee, and I know other members, Simon principally, because of big council housing area in this area, take this very seriously. And we are the audit and standards and governance, and I think it should lie within our remit, especially as we're getting something coming back related to it, which is possibly part of the underlying causes of why it's not going there. So that is my opinion on this, and I hope I get the backing of the committee to get somebody in front of us next meeting.
Can I?
Yeah.
We do need to be careful. I think Councillor Hunt is right that we do need to be careful not to engage in the remit of other policy committees. And the remit of this is to look at audit reports that are done by internal audit and to get reports back on those. And that's why the housing management system was here. I'm not sure that there is what I will call a roving matter, that they can just look at any matter within the council to have an audit review of that, or a review of performance, because that sits within policy committees. I'm quite happy to work with you, Chair, over what properly can come here, recognising the importance of that matter.
But I think part of the reason why is, in the previous, it was Ajman who was here, was giving a reason for the underperformance of the housing repairs because of the information management system wasn't working properly. So following on from that, when they're reporting back on the new housing management system, we want to have some reassurance that actually, more generally, the housing repairs system is working properly, which is why somebody who can answer those questions, they're bound to come up, and I don't want to be in a limp position of people saying, no, we have to, you know, email you your answers. I'd like somebody here in front of it who is competent to answer those, as well as answer specific questions on the new housing management system.
Excuse me, Chair. I mean, I just don't get it. I'm a local councillor, and I wish to, you know, ask these questions in a public place when, you know, we've done this thing before. We did it on, I'm just trying to think, I'd say it's not the first time when we've done this kind of thing. What is audit's job? Is it just to get the reports that were given by officers and happily move on with that and talk about numbers and what have you? I'm talking about people's lives. I'm talking about how this council operates. What is this audit committee for? I don't get it. Is it just to look at reports? You know, is it just to do, you know, do what the officers tell us to?
Okay, David, you've heard what I've said, and you've heard what I've said, so we will take it from there, and I'll be disappointed if we don't move this forward. Tom, right, you were going to, another topic, the Ernst & Young.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what the reason was as to why it wasn't ready in time this month, and what assurance they gave that it will be ready in time for next month.
Linda.
Yeah, we discussed at the pre-meeting, Colin asked me to get in contact with them. I've emailed them, I haven't had a response yet, but as soon as I get a response I can let you know. But I did express your concerns that, you know, it should have been tabled for this meeting, and we've deferred it to February, so what I'll do, I'll circulate the email as soon as I get a response and keep you updated. And if it doesn't come in February, like I say, I'll circulate it around to you as to the reasons why.
Okay, thank you. Angela.
Tony, do you have any concerns about the accounts being late?
Obviously, we would like to have timely accounts. Sheffield is not in an uncommon position, unfortunately, in relation to some of the national issues in relation to valuation of infrastructure assets, etc. So a very small number of authorities have managed to complete their 21-22 counts and have them signed off within the timetable. The previous year, it was only 8% of councils actually managed that. So I understand the environment we're working in, but obviously it's important that we get them done as quickly as possible. I personally actually have a meeting tomorrow with EY to go through any reasons and rationales of further delays, because when I met with them before Christmas, we thought we were certainly in line for a January meeting at best.
Okay, thank you very much. And that concludes, I think, the discussion on the work programme. Okay, at this point we're going to move into item 10 on the agenda, which is the strategic risk reporting, which is a closed item. So can I ask all members of the press and public, all of them, to leave, and we will pause the webcast.